think overall we were strong and should have won the game by more, if I'm honest. But even in that 10 minutes we were dominating possession and we were driving forward. I thought our condition, our fitness was good, but our attitude was really good. But within that 10 minutes there was still a chance for David Clifford to get a score, but that's the way it goes. It's games with Kerry are they're up and down, they're end to end, and that game was a crazy enough type of game today. So there'll always be close moments. I thought James Carr could have had a penalty. I thought David Clifford was probably unlucky not to get the goal. So that it balances out. But I think overall we were strong today and deserved the victory.
Aiden O'Shea's distribution was pretty immense. Matthew Moran was good beside him as well.
Yeah, they were up against us in the first half, but I thought in the second half when needed they came very, very strong, and Matty's very mobile and has a habit of ghosting in for key scores. But Aiden O'Shea is playing great football and getting better and better. So just delighted. But Chris Barrett today, I thought his positionals and aggression going for the ball was very strong. Keith Higgins as well. Some of those guys that I've toiled, I thought they were really strong today when needed.
Is the most satisfying thing after this league campaign not only that you have the trophy, not only that you've got a big win in Croke Park, but you've got a bit more depth to your squad now? I mean, there's real competition for places.
There is, and there's nothing like a couple of wins to Killian and Keane, Hanley, Shamey O'Shea, Joe Caffin, those guys will be chomping now to get in. And we've James Carr, we have Kieran Tracy, obviously Fionn McDonough, Matty, and we've numbers of others that some of them we haven't seen yet that have been really, really good in training and working hard. So that gives a great platform for a team. So we're just delighted with how that's going at the moment.
I know you probably could have and should have won it by more, but the fact that you actually squeezed it out in a final in Croke Park, that might actually be worth more to you as a team, given the heartbreak that you've gone through in finals.
Definitely. I suppose we've been called resilient for long enough, and you can only sometimes you get sick of that resilience. You want to have a bit of goal beside your name as well. So definitely when we got back to it, or Kerry got back to win a point, that could have been that feeling them doubts that come back again, saying this is going to be another heartbreaking moment. Will Kerry go up and get another score? But I think, to be honest, just even playing out there, I thought we were very relaxed about it. I thought we put together some brilliant moves now, albeit that we tried ourselves to give Kerry as much opportunities too, which is frustrating. But Kieran Tracy could have taken the easy option, went for fists over the bar. One score game, they could have gone down and get a goal. So it's things like that where he had the confidence, he's doing the training behind the scenes, and he puts in the back of net and game over. And I think the way we saw it the game as well, we had that bit of cuteness as well, which is important. So I mean, today, yes, it's hugely satisfying, to be honest with you. I mean, we've done well against Kerry in the last 4 or 5 years. We're the only team to beat them twice this year in league. So, and to get a game of that magnitude and intensity today, going into championship, is definitely going to bring us on a lot more than we need to be. So listen, there's so many positives, but as we'd all talk tonight, there's a lot to work on as well. And as I was saying, competition for the next few weeks is going to be crazy. No one is safe a spot. You've seen the way lads have played over the league. You talk about James McCormack, Fergie Boland's come in, Fionn McDonough, all these guys. Darren Cohen is coming out. So people are putting their hand up for positions and places for the New York game in 4 weeks' time, and that's the way it should be. That environment and that intensity.
Andy Moran, you've achieved a lot, almost everything with Mayo throughout your career, but today is a first, a national title in Croke Park.
Yeah, great feeling. I've said it already, hearing the green and red of Mayo playing at the end of any game in Croke Park is lovely, but to cheer him to go up there and pick up a cup, great start to his captaincy. And I suppose we don't have too many finals left in myself personally, so it's great to get one under the belt.
What was the difference today?
Youth. Yeah, youth. It's if Kieran Tracy, if that was an older player going through on goal there, would he tap it over the bar? I'd probably argue I'd have flicked it over the bar. That'd put us 2 up. That puts us 4 up, kills the game. Matthew Horan around the middle, Fionn McDonough all through the National League, Michael Plunkett, Darren Cohen, James Carr just have been brilliant to our side, introducing us, really pushing us as senior players, and they've been just brilliant.
And when you say youth, do you mean their skills are better or different, or do you mean their mentality is better or different?
I think it's just young players' mentality are different. When you play the percentages when you're that bit older. I'd play the percentages inside. I suppose Keith probably does the same in terms of cornerback. Aiden probably around the middle. Where these fellas just come in and they're like when we were young fellas. They just they let it off, they let it free, and away they go.
And you won this game playing what I would call typical James Horan football.
What's that?
Just really good to watch.
Yeah.
Hard running, running off the shoulder, seeing when it's on, going long.
Yeah, and I mentioned a lot of guys there. I mentioned Matty, I mentioned Fiona, I mentioned James Carr, Michael Plunkett. These guys can all move. You know, they can all run, and it's great to see. It's hard to keep up with. It's hard to keep up with at 35, but it's it's lovely to see, and they're just really, honestly now, Ocean, they're really good young fellas, good players. Really want to train, really want to do well, and it's been a huge positive to our setup.
And just before I let you go, it's probably a hard one to answer right now, but how important is this as a box to tick, to just get a ghost out of the way, to debunk a myth that you can't win a final in Croke Park, you know?
It's not even that, it's if I'm being honest, if you ask me, the 8 a.m. this morning, but I'd be saying it's a National League game, it's final, we'd love to win it. But you hear the music afterwards, you see the goal going in, and until you experience that, I don't really think you can imagine how important it is. And if I didn't experience it, I'd have never known it. But I'm very happy now that I've experienced it and seen it. And listen, we need to build now for the summer and try to go for the big one.
The Green and Red of Mayo is actually a beautiful song. It was actually really, really nice to watch that yesterday when that was coming out, and just because Mayo fans, they will travel, and Croke Park was really, really loud, and just you can hear it just when Andy Moran's talking there, the magic that meant to him, and he was saying, you know, at 35 I mightn't have many left. I mean, who'd have thought he'd still be playing at 35?
Did someone from News Talk make you say that during the interval?
I really like the Saw Doctors.
It actually, I'll take this one up, it actually was nice to hear.
It was
and
lovely.
It is brilliant for him.
It was heartwarming.
Yeah, like I played against him and he was a half back.
Really?
Yeah, he played left and right half back for Mayo, like when he started, and it's an amazing transition to see him as you know where he was over the last number of years, obviously at full forward. But it was brilliant for them yesterday. They you know, Horan's a smart customer, and for the last number of years, everyone was bemoaning the fact that they weren't finding enough people. They weren't finding enough new guys to really bring it in, and the team was looking a bit stale at the end of last year. But now all of a sudden he's injected some real pace and some players. Like Horan is a serious player, and it means that, you know, they can slot him into midfield. He's got legs in there where maybe Aiden doesn't have, although Aiden is playing really, really well, but he has those legs that he can tag a guy who's up and down. He's getting on the ends of things, and it also releases O'Connor then to do what he can do. And I have to say I was mightily impressed by him. He was a real captain's part. He was so brave for the goal. He could have got absolutely cleaned out, and he never took his eyes off the ball, which is what's needed. So no, it was good, and it is something, like, it's amazing to hear and to see the kind of outpouring of emotion from Mayo people that they finally just got a cup.
A cup, yeah.
You know? When
you consider out of all counties, the way their fans travel, if any fans deserved a cup to celebrate, it probably was Mayo.
Like, I mean, I'd say it's a national day of celebration down there at this stage.
Even up yet, maybe not. But actually, that was the big difference, I think, with Mayo this year compared to previous years. The other way, they were always nearly there. They just didn't have the one or two. Whereas now, they have the depth. Like, we're looking James Carr, Finn McDonough, Fergal Bull and Brian Reap. They were just amazing. Yeah, no, they've got some great depth. And he's done it very well. You know, he didn't pile them all into the league all at once. You know, and you might get you might get a bit of a kicking, you know, from a few teams. He kind of introduced them in 2s and 3s, which is the right way to do it. Like, there was times there, you know, even the last couple of weeks where he had Boyle at centre half back, and he was playing Keegan, and then he introduced a couple of guys around that. But who do you think was the find of the league for him?
I think Horan is very, very good. Like, I mean, from a midfield perspective, I'm watching him and I'm kind of going, wow, this lad could really be anything. You know, he has a pass. He's obviously got legs. He's well able to take a score. He's very level-headed. He's a big unit, and I think he complements, you know, a lot of stuff. They were really, really good around that middle yesterday. They were really good. Like, I mean, I was a bit disappointed in Barry, to be fair, with Kerry. You know, I just thought, they're young as well, and they really suffer from not having Moran, because Aiden O'Shea is he has all that experience, and you know, when you're trying to, you come up against him first 15-20 minutes physically, while if he's hitting you, it's going to start taking in your legs in the last 10, 12, 15 minutes, and that's what he did. He used his ability around there. He also put in some beautiful balls. He was a bit of a midfield general really yesterday. You know, he was very good with regard to tempo of the game. He had them running at times, he had delivering balls at times, and it was very evident in the second half. They actually kicked a lot more, and they said, let's put that Kerry full back line under a bit of pressure, which I think also needs a bit of work.
But on another day, let's remember though, he did also have to leave due to 2 yellow cards, and that could be an issue, in another game, in another day. If you're up against Dublin, you don't want that happening.
No,
or even Kerry in August.
True, but when you're in that engine room, you are susceptible to that when you're playing at that on the edge. Like, I'm not saying he's playing right on the edge, but you have to be physical. You're being around the pitch, and a slight miss delay in a tackle, and all of a sudden, as you say, you could be on a yellow. It's.
I think he suffers as well from, and I don't mean to sound this way, but he sometimes maybe looks a bit clumsy. It's not that he's not, it's just because he's such a big man that I think if he falls over, if the arm goes a little bit, even an inch too far, it can look much worse than it might be in somebody who had shorter limbs.
Correct, and it's funny, if you flip it, I thought Tommy Welch suffered a bit of that in the second half, where he's so big and physical that when he's coming out and grabbing balls and kind of hitting away smaller defenders, he had a few decisions against him yesterday. I was kind of going, he's just a big man, and he's actually just using his physicality. And guys he was getting frees given against them. So, it's something that O'Shea would obviously have to keep being mindful of. But I think, as regards fines, I think Rouen, you've got it's settling up to be a really, really good year for Mayo, and people were delighted for me to say that, because Dublin are obviously sitting there rubbing their hands in glee, obviously thinking, and I'm sure Galway would be sitting there, and lots of other teams in Connacht, and saying, right,
Connacht's going to be really interesting this year.
Very interesting.
More so than any of the other provinces.
I think the whole, actually, when you sit back, because I watched the Division 3 final, so I watched Derry Leitrim, Division 4, isn't it? And it was really, really good. Derry were very impressive. And when you think back, obviously Shlott Neal, see if Chrissy McCaig, they're just absolutely, just doing what Chrissy McCaig can do at 6. They had a brilliant kick-out strategy where they were just finding their men all the time. Some really, really good scores. And Leitrim were full value for what they've done. But
8 wins in a row, I think, for Derry. Tommy's after informing us
8 wins in a row,
Tommy's the best producer ever. He knows everything all the time.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, he is. 8 wins in a row. They never shirked it. But even at saying that, you look at the divisions, really, really close in most of them at the top. So there was some really close games. There was very few hammerings given out. And when you look at Division 3. That was extremely close as well. So there's a lot of teams on the up. There's a lot of teams. I think there's very few teams that would feel that their star is really going down. There's an awful lot of teams who are improving and who are potentially getting better. So the qualifiers and all of that is going to get very, very interesting. And I think the Super 8s, but I think at the end of the day, it'll all go back down to panels. And I think you'll find, which we found with Meath, I think on Saturday, that you really need to have 5, if not 6 guys that you can bring in and who will add something. And that's what the big teams have.
Yeah, and actually speaking about Meath there, actually, it kind of felt like, and I might be wrong in saying this, that game on Saturday nearly was in the way of Andy McEntee. He could have done without it.
I don't know. I've listened to him being interviewed, and word around the county was obviously that they were going up to win it. We've championship kind of now starting this week, so we'll have 2 rounds of championship in Meath, which is kind of fairly hectic, and so that'll be a pretty busy April for those players, because there'll be no rest. They'll be back in with their clubs, and straight away 2 rounds of championship and then back in, because the inter-county championship is 6 weeks away for them. I think they were really, really, really impressive in the first 15-20 minutes. Now, part of that is probably that Donegal were letting them kind of run at them, and then Donegal actually said, okay, we need to tag some certain guys, so they tagged up on Cillian O'Sullivan, they tagged up on a few others. Meath lost Brian McMahon, who was causing a bit of havoc. He had 2 points on the board and he was causing damage with his pace. They brought Graham Riley on, and Graham, has been massively brilliant for Meath over the years, but he's probably more of a 15-20 minute man to bring in against a tiring defence. So, but again, I think it was the bench. They just probably need, which again is true. There's a few fellas there who've never played in Croke Park. There's guys there who are, only playing for Meath for the first time this year. So all of that is going to be experience for them for the next day. And I don't think it's a conditioning thing. I saw some people saying, Meath ran out of steam. I don't think it was that. they play a very, very high press, high energy game. And that first 15, 20 minutes, they probably could have been 10 or 11 points ahead, you know. And you probably would have said, actually, yeah, they're full value for that. Like, they were 8 up. They easily could have been 11 or 12. Like, they missed a few handy shots. Mickey Newman had the goal disallowed, the one for the square ball. But when you're playing that really high press, high energy game, you actually kind of need that cushion. Because, to be fair, Donegal worked it out. They tagged some runners, they closed it down. And then I think Meath retreated, and they retreated a bit, probably at the wrong time, and they kind of brought Donegal onto them. Yeah. And then Murphy kicked in. Like, he moved out from full forward when they were under pressure, controlled the game out there, and then when they got back into it, he moved back into full forward, and he just caused major damage in there.
Yeah, we're very good at throwing stuff back at people, you know. So we've got some of your tweets here from Saturday. Now, it's always interesting, you know, when basically...
This wasn't me, by the way, this was someone else.
Well, no, in fairness, you're not really going that different to what you're saying now. You know, sometimes you tweet stuff out and then your opinion might change on reflection. But I think it's more or less the same. So they started off killing Donegal, you say, by moving the ball fast and rewarding runners. Then they decided midway through that half to do individual stuff and allowed Donegal back into it by being turned over and giving some cheap ball away. Need to get back to what was working so well. Now, that's all easier said than done. So they were 8 points clear, and then things started kind of to unravel. But maybe that was just because Donegal had their number by then, maybe.
Yeah, and this goes back to the point I was making about the soccer analogy about the length of time and the amount of analysis that's being done. The camera flicked to Bonner on the sideline. I could see him, he was talking to Carl Lacey, and they were obviously in deep conversation about what was actually going on. And I remarked I remember saying to my brother yesterday, when after about 15, 20 minutes, the camera flicked to Horan, and he was very, very calm on the sideline. So there's a belief with these fellas that, listen, as long as it doesn't get too much out of hand, we can turn things around when you're a quality team. And when you have someone like Murphy in your setup, you know, you have the guy who can unlock all those doors for you. So what I think they did, and listen, I'm no obviously expert in this, but I think what they did when they brought McGee on, first of all, he shored it down. He shored Newman up, right? Because he brought guys back. Leo McClune dropped in front of him, and they just said, okay, that long ball in is now no longer an option. But what Meath should have realised then was, okay, that Mickey Newman is no longer an option, but long ball into the other two guys could be options. But instead they ran it. And what happened was Donegal then tagged all the runners, and Meath ran into an awful lot of dark alleys. You know, so James McEntee a number of times got turned over. Cillian O'Sullivan ran a number of times, turned over. And those turnovers, every single one of those turnovers practically were punished at far end. So you're then facing a kick out. Donegal squeezed the kick out, and you're really struggling to get the ball out. Whereas in the first 15, 20 minutes, all of that was very slick hands. You know, I run into space, give it to you at angles. It was all very one touch, and they were getting great reward from that. And they were also mixing it with long ball into Newman. When that kind of tactic was taken away from them by Donegal, they should have been able to say, okay, well, we'll pull Newman out and actually bring him out the field, drag the two lads, bring McGee out, and actually create space in behind for, say, Tomas O'Reilly or one of the other lads. That's something I think they'll learn, and I think they'll be able to adapt, because they felt a little bit of a kind of, not a one-trick pony, because they had the long ball into Newman on the running game, but it felt like very much that they kind of had two tactics for going forward when probably you need 3 to 4, but they learn from it. You know, it's a brilliant game from them, and that high press, high energy game. It's really difficult to do that in Croke Park, because Croke Park is just so big. Like, I mean, it is just so big. There is so much space, and I know people say, well, how is there that much space relative to other teams or other pitches? But there just is. You know, it's just the makeup of the pitch.
I assume the feeling of the hill as well, when it's empty, that just makes it seem even dimensionally bigger again.
Correct. You know, and if a goalkeeper kicks a little short kick out and you're trying to press it, it just feels like a guy gets a ball in so much, like he literally has, so he can go back to the goalkeeper. It just feels like it's a very big area, you know. So if you are playing that game, as I say, you need to be able to bring on 5 guys who are able to do that press very, very hard, you know, at high intensity. And as I said in the tweets, I just felt that there was a couple of points. McMahon you'll see, if anyone watches the game, McMahon is coming through. He has Brian Menton on his right-hand shoulder. All he should do is slip him the pass, and Menton has a goal. And then, you know, after that, obviously the Newman one, you know, he probably should make himself aware of where the small square is and just step back out to come back in. But listen, Meath people will be happy. I think it's been 8 really good games for them. And it's been a great league campaign for them. And Andy will be happy. When he sits back and reflects, he'll go, okay, very good. We need to layer on that now. Layer over the next number of weeks and get ready for the championship. I think Donegal, you mentioned Connacht. I think Ulster is going to be seriously difficult this year to get out of. Down are going improving. Derry are improving. You know, so you're even just saying the lesser light for Mana are still going to be there.
Causing trouble for somebody, always.
Trouble.
Yeah.
And then you've got Monaghan, Donegal, you know, you've got Tyrone.
Armagh.
That is going to Armagh, and Armagh are improving big time.
Yeah.
So it's really, that's you know, I think there's going to be a couple of real big shocks up there.
It's funny actually, you mentioned Tyrone as well. I always think when I think of Tyrone, I think of that really warm summer's evening down in Park Talton last summer against Meath, and you're just thinking like, that was a really harsh lesson for Meath to learn, but it might have stood to them, that experience, like that they had Tyrone on the jugular, and okay, refereeing decision aside, when perhaps that free at the end should have been a free, it wasn't given, it might have levelled it up. I think Tyrone would have won it anyway, eventually. Yeah. But I just feel that the hurt from that and the lessons they took from it, I feel that they kind of grew up a lot after that.
Yeah, they probably did. I still don't think that night, if you know, when we were watching it, I still felt that at certain times, again, they were Tyrone had their number sometimes from Tyrone's defence point of view, that they kind of said, well, we know which guys they're going to try to get the ball to and punch holes. Now, Meath have added to it this year, and they've added a little bit of physicality in the full forward line. I just think a lot of teams now are giving you different looks. So what they'll do is they'll say, right, here's our setup. If you work that out, we're going to switch to a completely different setup. And if you get that one, we're going to either switch back or go to it. So there's nearly 2 to 3. There's definitely 2 looks, but there's nearly 3 to 4 different looks, which is a big man inside, a big man maybe out at 11, or more of a running game, lots of space, lots of guys behind the ball, and we break, whatever it is. But that only comes from having a team and having a seasoned team, and you're able to layer it. Like, I mean, people look at Mayo and Kerry, like that Mayo team, regardless of the new guys in, there's a serious amount of, you know, experience in that team, and these guys just go, well, we know how to play this. Yeah. And Horan has had them. So he's like, okay, guys, we go back to what we know, we go back to the same calls, we go back to whatever it is, we're able to change it up. So, but Meath will only improve.
The bench actually was used really well yesterday as well by Horan. It was just he fired them off exactly at the right time.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like Andy Moran in particular, when he came out, obviously that's the impact of the big roar, but Colin Boyle, imagine having Colin Boyle to come on as your sub.
Yeah, absolutely, and chomping at the bit to get in. No, it is. It's like, I mean, to flip it and look at Donegal, not that I was worried about Donegal at the start of the year. They've had their, obviously, you know, kind of troubles up there, you know, from an emotional perspective early on in the year and everything else that they had to get over. They had a number of guys like Owen Gallagher coming back, who was just immense on Saturday. Like, that guy is just, I think he's a fantastic player. I had him in my team last year.
Who did you throw him out for?
Well, he was injured now, to be fair. Okay. Yeah, so give me a chance there. But I tell you, if he keeps going the way he can go, like, he's a guy who could be all-star reckoning.
Owen Gallagher, that's inspiration now for you to get back to your best. You could be in Anthony Moyles' top 10.
Just keep playing your cards right.
But speaking of Donegal, though, like, they did really, really well the weekend, and we still have Paddy McBurty and a few others to come back.
Yeah. You know, I've heard some people saying, oh, well, the experience. Then I was kind of going, well, really, did they have that much experience on the field? And then I kind of actually started to think about it. It was like, yeah, because there's some guys who are still relatively young, but they've been there for donkey's years. Like, McGrath has been there a long time now, you know, and he's been doing his cornerback stuff for a long time. And then obviously you have McGee, you have Murphy, you have McFadden. And if they get McBurty back and get him back even 85 to 90%, but to be fair, They've got a couple of fines up there. Young, what's his name? Gallen.
Gallen, yeah.
Like, that guy is playing now. Four scores from play at 18 years of age in Croke Park in your first final. 4
against Kildare last week. Tommy's after whispering into my ear there.
But what I liked about him was he had a few misses at the start. And he was being really, really well defended, and he was under a bit of pressure, and he never once dropped a head. Like, I mean, after that, in your final, especially when you see the full back being whipped so early, like after 13, 14 minutes, he got pulled out, you know, and I've been there before. The fullback is always the first to go when there's a general malaise, because you're just getting clean, balls are just coming in, and they were being put on a plate for Mickey Newman, and it's always typical. You get taken off and then things start tightening up out around the middle. But he never, ever lost focus, and he just said no, and he never lost confidence, and some of the scores he kicked were really, really top drawer. It was a great game to watch, I have to say.
Yeah.
The Derry game was a great game to watch. The standard of football over the weekend was excellent. And, people have bemoaned football about the rule changes have been brilliant.
Yeah.
Now it's still hard to get it sometimes with the mark. You still see guys making a mark and lads are tackling them, and even the guy is catching it. Even Murphy a couple of times, young Cormac McGill was tackling them, and the referee was like, no, it's a mark. But that offensive mark is brilliant. It really is. It's a massive addition to the game, I think.
Did it go far enough?
Well, the funny thing about it is, what I find tricky with it is, it's like you're learning a new skill in your job, right? And you learn it and you get it down, and then someone comes over and says, by the way, you don't need that now anymore. Because that's what happens.
Yeah.
So you're, as a defender, over the last number of years, you have learned, when you drop in, say as a half forward, you learn to mark space. You zonal marking, everyone else is picked up, I'm in a zone. So even if the ball comes in and is caught by you at corner forward, I just make sure I go over and double up. So I don't necessarily need to get to you as the ball is coming. I just need to be there as you get it. But now you need to get there before a ball gets to you, because or else you mark it and you just have a shot. So you can still see the body language of some, especially half forwards coming back or midfielders, is that as the ball is in the air, they're thinking, okay, I'm just going to be there to press the guy when he catches it. And then he catches it and it's a mark, and they're like, oh yeah, forgot that.
Yeah,
and he
it's
sticks
funny
it
because
over
you
the
have to think that quickly as well.
Correct.
And I've seen in a few games actually this summer that marks people could have had and they didn't take them for whatever reason, or they were missed, or you were wondering, was that a mark, was it not?
It's very difficult. These guys are only down there. Amateur players, they're not there every single day walking through this. So you can imagine a manager has to get his fitness levels up, his S&C levels up, he has to do a bit of tactical work, he has to do this, and then he has to layer in rule changes, which really is kind of walk-through stuff. But you have to do it in games. You may even miss it yourself. If you have a lad refereeing the game, he might miss it if you're playing, in-house games. And then players might miss it. And you're right, there is that little bit of confusion. And then, of course, when the oxygen starts to, dissipate, going to the brain, anything can happen.
Yeah, when you get tired.
Yeah, so you asked, did it go far enough? I think with all of these changes, it's now very difficult. Players now have to, just relate and go back to what they knew prior to this. So that, you're either putting it in or you're not putting it in. It's the way I would look at it. And let teams then say, okay, this is going to be in. I'm going to really practice it.
Now the thing is as well, when you think about these marks and all these rule changes, there's a man in between the sticks who has to really keep an eye on everything, because the goalkeepers are constantly strategizing, they're doing all that, and then these rule changes. And one goalkeeper in particular is Rob Henley. The Croke Park redemption came yesterday for that man.
Yeah, I have to say he has a serious amount of resolve. He really does as a player. He must do, because he's I've watched him, and even he loves. I think he loves being a goalkeeper. First of all, he really enjoys the aspect of it. He's really into it. He's a guy who I'd say just practices and is constantly looking for different things when he's away from even just normal training. But his resolve over the last number of years has been savagely high, because we spoke about the hurt that has gone with Mayo fans. Well, a lot of that, the ire, shall we say, from Mayo people would have been pointed at him.
Black card in the All-Ireland final, that was a horrible moment.
It was a horrible moment for him, and it's, it's a moment that can really play on your mind and can play in your career. And it's very easy just to say, I'm done here. I don't need this in my, be it my personal life. From the outside looking in, we'd all say, oh, geez, that Mayo people great. I'm sure they're all great fans, but I'm sure there's a certain element who just absolutely destroyed him. Which happens in most counties. People are going to have a go, be it for the right reasons or the wrong reasons. So I'd say there was plenty of dark days for him, but he's come back at it, and it's brilliant to see. Yeah, delighted for him.
That's 2013 as well. It's funny when you say there, most counties, fans are great, but every once in a while they'll have a go. When that ever happened to you, did that play in your mind when you went to bed that night?
I used to get that so regularly, it didn't really bother me. The opposite, actually. If anyone actually said, "Well done, you played really," I was like, "Whoa, hold on,
suspicious?
something going on here."
Really?
Yeah, something going on here.
And like,
This
when you
isn't
say,
good.
all jokes aside, when you say it happens so regularly, do you think, was it worse for you? Was it worse than me? Or do you think is it changed over the years? I really think it's got more vitriolic over the years.
No, there was certain guys I used to think, certain journalists who I thought had maybe a bit of a hex. You know, if I thought I was an 8. See, back then we only had the rankings in the paper. We didn't have this kind of analysis. We were like, oh, 6 again.
Right, are you telling me now that every GA manager and every player says we pay no attention to this? It is, we don't listen to papers. We don't read the papers. We don't listen to the radio.
Everyone reads. Yeah, you read.
Do they? Do you think
Yes.
they're still doing it?
Absolutely.
Why did they say they don't then?
Because they don't want to feel that it's a major, determining factor in anyone's.
But what if you said, I have read it,
Psychological
I don't
makeup.
agree with it, move on the bus?
That's what I think you should. Anyone I'd say read the papers. Who cares? That's only someone's opinion.
So that means
Move
they're all
on.
looking at your top 10, which means you've really hurt Owen Gallagher this morning.
No, I said he should be in. He could be in.
He could be in, but then you have to dump somebody. Actually, it's Conor McManus whose feelings you're really hurt.
Well, Conor McManus, I'd say yes. Well, and by the way, if truth be known, because of my tiredness, you actually really planted that seed in my head. So really, it's your fault.
All right, it's all my fault. Okay, it's all my fault. Conor McManus is not in his top 10. Right, I'm going to move on from that now. We're going to move on to another sport. On Saturday night, TG Cahir, I was actually working there. We broadcast Clash of the Titans at the National Stadium, where Kildare's Eric Donovan became the Irish featherweight champion. We talk about people having hard luck stories and long journeys. Eric's story was a long one, and he finally got his redemption on Saturday night.